So I kind of want to get into about the psychoanalysis of Freud, Sigmund Freud, and think about that a little bit, because I've been reading a little bit about the existentialist psychoanalysis of Jean-Paul Sartre, so I'm kind of wanting to contrast those two kinds of psychoanalysis and think about those two things. Freud basically made a lot of contributions to psychology and how to sort of interpret the psyche, interpret the subject, and then figure out what's going on. Not as much as looking at behavior, but partly so. He's not a behaviorist. He's like B.F. Skinner. He kind of looked at what he calls the unconscious. So, but the behavior was important, but the behavior isn't entirely what's going to explain what's going on inside of the psyche. There are conscious and there are unconscious aspects of one's psyche. And the behavior can be explained by things that are unconscious. A behavioral theorist would say that the behavior can explain what is of the person, what is within. However, Freud says that what is unconscious can explain behavior. So, kind of going the other way with that. And the whole thing here with Freud's psychoanalysis was the goal was to bring out what is in the unconscious. The psyche is structured in a certain way that is hidden, and things can be explained about the person by bringing out what is unconscious in a person conscious and bringing that stuff out. And that's understanding parts of the psyche, understanding how the psyche works via like the id, the ego, and the superego. But also there are emotions and things that occur in a person's life that are repressed, brought inward, and made hidden. And the goal of Freud's empirical psychoanalysis was mainly to bring that stuff out. And the way the psyche, according to Freud, is structured is that you have the id, which is the id is the part of the psyche that is the instincts. The instinct to, something that Freud talked about a lot was sexual instincts. And then you have the ego, which is your consciousness, the reality of yourself that you are conscious of. Is yourself. What the self is made of is mostly the ego. And the id and the superego are kind of hidden things that kind of come out in the self, the ego. And then you have the superego, which is the sense of morality, the sense of right and wrong. The superego develops in early childhood, as things of the id are things of the id that a person wants to act on become shown to be taboo and shown to be wrong. So what you have here is this inner conflict going on. The dilemma of human existence is that you have the id and the ego and the superego, and how they all want different things, and they conflict, and things happen which can basically cause a lot of conflict and a lot of issues for the person because of how those three things conflict, and how the self is going to respond, to the id and the superego. So the whole idea of psychoanalysis was to make problems of the person, the problems that one has, to understand those things and to bring them out, to make them understood. That way we can solve them or treat them. And that, in a way, worked, but in some ways didn't. The way Lacan did it and had some really bad effects. But Freud talked about dream work, talks about sexuality, taboo, and all these things. Talks about different emotions and instincts that people have, and tries to explain them. He had his book Interpretation of Dreams, trying to interpret dreams and bring out the meaning, the unconscious truth about those dreams. So the business of psychoanalysis for Freud was to bring out what is unconscious, to look at the unconscious and bring it out into the open, to uncover it, to understand it, to understand more about the person, the self. And from that point, things can be treated if one knows about what's going on, about why a person is the way he is or acts the way he does. Sartre's existentialist psychoanalysis rejects the idea of the unconscious and goes at it a different way. Personally, I would have to agree with Sartre's way of going at it, but that's just me. So I kind of wanted to go over this a little bit and think about it, and then I'll do a video on Sartre's existential psychoanalysis and kind of maybe do a video talking about how those two things contrast and compare.